Don't mistake this for a marriage, Alara. It is a transaction. You are here because I require a presence in this house, and you require protection. The voice was deep, smooth, and utterly devoid of warmth. Lysander Kane didn't even turn his motorized chair around to look at his new bride. He just stared out into the storm, his hands resting motionless on the control panel. Alara Vance stood in the center of the massive, cold bedroom, shivering in a wedding dress that felt more like a costume than a garment. She had just signed away a year of her life to a man the world pitted, a man known as the broken genius, the crippled billionaire. But as she looked at the back of his head, she didn't feel pity. She felt a strange, vibrating tension in the air. A warning. "Stay in your wing," Lysander commanded, his voice dropping an octave. "Do not enter my study. Do not ask questions. And never, under any circumstances, try to play the role of a loving wife. We are strangers with a contract. Nothing more." The lights in the room flickered, casting sharp angles across the sleek furniture. Alara swallowed hard, gripping the handle of her suitcase until her knuckles turned white. She had traded her freedom for $40 million and a shield against her enemies. But as the heavy security locks slammed shut on the door behind her, the realization hit her like a physical blow. She hadn't just walked into a marriage. She had walked into a cage. Let me ask you something. Have you ever trusted someone with your life, only to find out they were holding the knife the entire time? Have you ever given your blood, sweat, and tears to build something, only to watch the people you call family sell you out for a paycheck? It is the kind of pain that doesn't just break your heart, it breaks your reality. You stand there, looking at faces you've known since childhood, and suddenly, you realize you never knew them at all. You were never a person to them. You were just an asset, a disposable pawn to be sacrificed when the check came due. This is exactly where Alara Vance found herself. She wasn't just anyone, she was brilliant. She was the architect behind the Vance family's revival, the one who stayed late fixing the mistakes her lazy cousin made, the one who believed that hard work and loyalty would save their legacy. She was wrong. But what happens when the scapegoat refuses to break? What happens when the girl they threw to the wolves finds a wolf of her own? One far more dangerous than anything her family could conjure. And the biggest question of all, what if the man in the chair isn't the helpless victim he pretends to be? Let's find out. The air in the boardroom was stagnant, smelling of stale coffee and expensive cologne. Alara Vance smoothed the front of her blazer, trying to ignore the nervous flutter in her stomach. She had been summoned by the board of Vance Architecture urgently. She assumed it was about the new city library project. She had pulled 3 all-nighters, ensuring the structural schematics were perfect. "Thank you for coming on such short notice, Alara," said Serafina Vance. Her aunt sat at the head of the long mahogany table, her fingers steeped together. Serafina was a beautiful woman in the way a jagged piece of glass is beautiful, sharp, cold, and capable of drawing blood. Next to her sat Miles, Alara's cousin. He was leaning back in his chair, scrolling through his phone, a smirk playing on his lips that he couldn't quite suppress. "Is something wrong with the schematics?" Alara asked, placing her tablet on the table. "I double-checked the load-bearing calculations." "This isn't about the library," Serafina interrupted. Her voice was terrifyingly calm. She slid a thick file folder across the polished wood. It stopped right at the edge of the table, directly in front of Alara. "It is about the internal audit regarding the West End development funds." Alara frowned. "The West End funds? Miles handles those accounts. I just do the design." "That is what we thought," Serafina said, her eyes narrowing. But the forensic accountants found something else. $3 million, Alara. Siphoned out over 6 months into a shell company registered in the Caymans. Alara laughed. It was a breathless, confused sound. "That's impossible. I don't even have access to the ledger." "You do," Miles piped up, finally looking up from his phone. His eyes were bright with mock sympathy. "You used my clearance override. We found the digital logs. They trace back to your personal laptop IP address. And the shell company? It's registered under your mother's maiden name." Alara felt the blood drain from her face. The room seemed to tilt. "Miles, that's insane. You asked for my laptop last week to run a software update." "You." She stopped. She looked at Miles's smug face. She looked at Serafina's icy composure. "It wasn't a mistake. It was a setup. We know about your gambling debts, Alara," Serafina said, shaking her head with feigned disappointment. "We know you were desperate." "I don't gamble." Alara stood up, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. "I drive a 10-year-old car. I pay rent on a studio apartment. Where is this money I supposedly stole? Hidden well, I assume, Serafina replied, opening the folder to reveal a termination notice. The board has already voted. We are terminating your employment immediately. We are also freezing your trust fund to recover the stolen assets. And naturally, we will be pressing charges if you don't sign this admission of guilt and leave the city. Admission of guilt? Alara's voice shook. I won't sign a lie. I built this company's reputation. I did the work while Miles partied in Ibiza. And that is why you're the perfect villain, Miles said softly, leaning in. You're the smart one. Everyone knows I'm too incompetent to pull off a $3 million heist. But you? You're the genius, Alara. Who else could hack the system? The cruelty of it took her breath away. They were using her own competence against her. They had stolen the money, and they were handing her the handcuffs. Get out, Serafina commanded, pointing to the door. Security is waiting to escort you. You are a disgrace to the Vance name. Before we see just how far Alara falls, I want you to take a second. If you hate seeing good people destroyed by greedy relatives, hit that subscribe button. Join the community. We tell stories here where the innocent fight back. Now, let's see what happens when you take everything away from a woman who has nothing left to lose. The silence in the car was heavy. Alara sat in the driver's seat of her beat-up sedan, parked in the back corner of a Walmart parking lot. The windows were fogged up. She checked her bank app again. Balance, minus $412.00.
They hadn't just fired her. They had nuked her life. Within hours of leaving the building, the news had broken. Vance heiress caught in multi-million-dollar embezzlement scandal. Serafina had leaked it to the press immediately. Alara had tried to go to her apartment, but the landlord met her at the door. He had changed the locks. I don't want trouble with the police, he had said, tossing her a bag of clothes. Your aunt called. Said the apartment was paid for with stolen money. So here she was. Homeless. Broke. Disgraced. She opened her laptop, the only thing she had managed to keep hidden from the guards, and connected to the store's free Wi-Fi. Her inbox was full. Rejection. Architectural Digest. Rejection. Starlight Design Group. Rejection. Freelance inquiry. One email from a former mentor read simply, Alara, I'm disappointed. Please do not contact me again. She slammed the laptop shut. A tear, hot and angry, tracked down her cheek. She wiped it away furiously. She wouldn't cry for them. She refused. Her stomach grumbled, a painful, twisting reminder that she hadn't eaten since breakfast. She looked at the passenger seat. A half-empty bottle of water and a stale granola bar. That was it. That was her inventory. She reclined the seat, pulling her coat tighter around herself as the temperature dropped. The car engine sputtered and died when she tried to turn on the heater. She banged her fist against the steering wheel, screaming a silent scream into the darkness. I didn't do it, she whispered to the empty car. I didn't do it, but it didn't matter. The truth doesn't matter when you don't have the power to prove it. She was drowning, and the water was rising fast. Her phone buzzed. An unknown number. Alara stared at it. It was 11:45 p.m. Who would be calling her now? Probably a reporter looking for a quote. Probably another creditor. She almost let it go to voicemail. But a strange instinct, a gut feeling that this was the bottom and the only way was up, made her slide her thumb across the screen. Hello, her voice was raspy. Ms. Vance, a woman's voice answered. Crisp, professional, expensive. My name is Petra Dubois. I represent a client who has been watching your situation closely. If you're a reporter, go to hell. I am not a reporter, Petra said calmly. I am a lawyer, and I am currently holding a contract that can solve every single one of your problems. I know where you are parked. Look to your left. Alara froze. She rubbed the condensation off the window and peered out. A sleek, black limousine was idling 3 rows away, its headlights cutting through the rain. The rear door opened. Come inside, Ms. Vance. Petra's voice came through the phone. We have a proposition for you. Alara looked at the limo, then back at her cold, dead car. She had no money, no home, no future. She grabbed her coat, opened the car door, and stepped out into the rain. Here is a towel, Petra said, extending a crisp white cloth. She didn't offer sympathy. She offered efficiency. Let's skip the pleasantries, Ms. Vance. I know your financial situation. I know about the lawsuit your family is preparing. And I know you have exactly 48 hours before you are arrested for corporate fraud. Alara wiped her face, the warmth of the car making her shiver uncontrollably. If you know all that, you know I can't afford a lawyer like you. I'm not selling my services, Petra replied, tapping her tablet screen. I'm buying yours. She turned the tablet around. A digital contract was displayed. The header read, Kane Global Systems, Marriage Agreement. Alara stared at the name. Kane? As in Lysander Kane? The CEO, Petra confirmed. Mr. Kane requires a wife. His board of directors is anxious. They believe his physical condition makes him weak. They want to see stability. A family man. A devoted partner who will stand by his side and soften his public image. Alara scoffed, a harsh sound in the quiet car. So, he wants a nurse with a ring? He has nurses. He wants a wife. Specifically, he wants you. Why me? Alara asked, her eyes narrowing. I'm a pariah. My name is Mud. Exactly, Petra said, her voice cool and pragmatic. You are desperate. You have no allies. That makes you safe. A woman with a powerful family might try to leverage the marriage for company shares. You just want to survive. Petra scrolled to the bottom of the document. Here are the terms. 1 year. You will live at Kane Manor. You will attend functions. You will act the part of the devoted wife. In exchange, Kane Global will pay off your embezzlement debt immediately, ensuring the charges are dropped. You will receive a stipend of $50,000 a month. And at the end of the year, you will receive a divorce settlement of $40 million. Alara stopped breathing. 40 million. It was enough to disappear. Enough to start over. Enough to burn the Vance family to the ground if she wanted to. And the catch? Alara asked. There's always a catch. The catch is the man, Petra said, her face unreadable. Lysander Kane is difficult. He is a recluse. The accident 5 years ago took his legs, but it also took his trust. He demands absolute privacy. You will live in the manor, but you will not pry into his life. You will be a wife in public and a ghost in private. Alara looked out the window. The rain was still pouring. Out there was prison, hunger, and humiliation. In here, on this screen, was a golden cage. She thought of Seraphina's smile when she fired her. She thought of Miles laughing. Where do I sign? Alara asked. The door opened with a hydraulic hiss. Alara turned. She had seen photos of Lysander Kane in the business journals, usually grainy telephoto shots of him entering a car or leaving a hospital. They didn't do him justice. He was striking. Dark hair, sharp cheekbones, and eyes the color of cold steel. He was wearing a tuxedo that fit his broad shoulders perfectly. But he didn't walk in. He glided. He was seated in a carbon fiber wheelchair that looked more like a cockpit than a medical device. It hummed with faint electronic noise. His hands, large and elegant, rested on a joystick controller. Petra walked beside him. Mr. Kane, this is Alara. Lysander didn't smile. He didn't even nod. He drove the chair forward, stopping 5 feet away from her. He looked her up and down, not with desire, but with the clinical detachment of an engineer inspecting a structural beam. She's thinner than the file suggested, Lysander said, his voice deep and rough. He spoke to Petra, ignoring Alara completely. Stress, sir, Petra noted. Alara felt a flash of anger. I'm standing right here. Lysander's eyes snapped to hers. For a second, she felt a jolt of electricity. His gaze was intense, heavy. But then the wall slammed back down. I know you are, he said. Let's get this over with. I have a board meeting at 2. The ceremony, if you could call it that, took 10 minutes. The officiant was a nervous man who clearly wanted to be anywhere else. He rushed through the vows. Do you, Lysander, take this woman? I do. Do you, Alara? I do. You may kiss the bride. The silence stretched. Lysander didn't move. He looked at Alara's mouth, his jaw tightening. For a fleeting moment, Elara saw something behind his eyes, a flicker of hesitation, pain, but it vanished as quickly as it appeared. He leaned forward slightly in his chair. Elara bent down, offering her cheek. His lips brushed against her skin. They were cold, but his breath was hot. He smelled of sandalwood and rain. "Do not make me regret this," he whispered against her ear. It was a threat, not a promise. He pulled back instantly. "Petra, have the car brought around. We are leaving." The drive to Kane Manor was silent. Lysander worked on a tablet the entire time, ignoring her. When they arrived, the gates opened automatically, revealing a property that was breathtaking but intimidating. The car stopped in a subterranean garage. "Welcome home," Lysander said, the irony dripping from his voice.
They took an elevator up to the main foyer. It was cavernous, minimalist art, marble floors that clicked under Alara's heels. It felt like a museum, not a home. "Petra will show you to your wing," Lysander said, turning his chair toward a set of double steel doors on the east side of the hall. "That is the East Wing. It is yours. You have a full staff, a library, and a gym." He pointed to the West Wing. The doors there were reinforced with a biometric scanner on the wall. "This is the West Wing." "It is mine," he said. "You do not have access. The staff does not have access unless I authorize it. You will never attempt to enter. Is that understood?" 7. "Understood," Elara said. "But what about dinner? Conversation? We're supposed to convince the world we're in love." "We will schedule public appearances," Lysander said, his back already to her as the biometric scanner read his retina. The heavy doors clicked open. "Until then, stay out of my way." The doors slid shut behind him, locking with a definitive thud. Elara stood alone in the massive, silent foyer. A maid in a gray uniform appeared from the shadows, startling her. "Mrs. Kane," the maid said, unsmiling. "Follow me." Alara's room was larger than her entire old apartment. It was beautiful, filled with expensive furniture and silk sheets, but the air was sterile. The windows didn't open, safety glass. She sat on the edge of the bed, the silence of the house pressing in on her. She had escaped her family, but she had traded them for a ghost. Late that night, unable to sleep, she wandered out into the hallway. The house was dark. She walked toward the kitchen to get water, but stopped when she heard a sound. It was coming from the West Wing, Lysander's forbidden territory. It wasn't the sound of a TV or music. It was a rhythmic, heavy clank, like metal hitting metal, followed by a heavy exhale. Clank. Exhale. Clank. Exhale. It sounded like weightlifting. She stepped closer to the dividing door. "Impossible," she muttered. He was paralyzed from the waist down. He needed a motorized chair to move. He couldn't be lifting heavy weights. She pressed her ear against the cold steel of the door. The sound stopped instantly. A second later, a camera mounted on the ceiling swiveled toward her with a soft whir. A red light blinked. Elara jumped back, heart racing. She felt like she was being watched by a predator. She quickly retreated to her room, locking the door behind her. She lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling. Petra had said he was a cripple. The world said he was broken. But the sound she heard, that was the sound of power. Something about Lysander Kane was a lie. And Elara had a sinking feeling that finding out the truth might be deadly. 2 weeks passed. 14 days of silence. Kane Manor was a masterpiece of modern architecture, but to Elara, it was a tomb. The walls were reinforced concrete, smoothed to a satin finish. The windows were bulletproof glass that turned the stunning ocean view into a distant, untouchable painting. Elara had tried to be useful. She had asked the staff if she could help with the garden or organize the library. "That won't be necessary, Mrs. Kane," the head housekeeper, Mrs. Gable, had said. Mrs. Gable was a stern woman who moved with the silent precision of a cat. "Mr. Kane prefers everything to remain exactly as it is." So Elara existed. She was a ghost haunting a house she didn't own. She saw Lysander rarely. He would emerge from the West Wing for meals, eating with the efficiency of a machine before disappearing again. He never asked how her day was. He never looked at her longer than necessary. But Elara was an architect. Her entire life was built on noticing details. Structural flaws, misaligned beams, the subtle warping of a foundation. And as she watched her husband, she began to notice cracks in his performance. It happened on a Tuesday. Elara was in the library, trying to find a book on medieval history to distract herself from the crushing boredom. She was 20 feet up on the sliding mahogany ladder. "You should come down," Lysander's voice cut through the silence. He hadn't turned around. He was typing on a holographic keyboard at his desk. "That ladder hasn't been serviced in 6 months." "I'm fine," Elara called down, annoyed. "I know how to balance." She reached for a heavy, leather-bound encyclopedia. As she pulled it free, the dust jacket slipped. The massive book, weighing easily 10 pounds, tumbled from her grip. It fell straight down, directly toward Lysander's head. "Lysander, move!" she screamed. In that split second, physics dictated a specific outcome. A man paralyzed from the waist down, strapped into a heavy motorized chair, cannot dodge. The reaction time of the joystick alone would be too slow. The inertia of the chair would make a sudden jerk impossible. But that isn't what happened. Before the book could make contact, Lysander's chair didn't just move, it snapped. It shifted 3 feet to the left with a speed that blurred the air. It wasn't the smooth hum of an electric motor. It was a violent kinetic lurch. The heavy book smashed onto the desk where his head had been a fraction of a second before, cracking the wood surface. Elara froze on the ladder, her heart hammering against her ribs. She scrambled down the rungs and ran to him. "Are you okay?" "I'm so sorry, She stopped. Lysander was staring at the dent in the desk. His face was pale, but his breathing was controlled. He wasn't shaking. "I told you the ladder was unsafe," he said, his voice flat. "How did you do that?" Elara whispered. She looked at the heavy chair. "That thing weighs 300 pounds. You moved it like it was a feather. The motor didn't even whine." Lysander turned the chair slowly to face her. His eyes were hard, guarding a secret. "It is a prototype, Elara. Gyroscopic stabilizers. It reacts to my hand tremors on the joystick. High sensitivity." "That wasn't a tremor," Elara argued, her architect's brain analyzing the geometry of the movement. "That was a reflex. A full-body reflex. To generate that kind of torque, you would need to shift your weight. You would need to use your core." She looked at his midsection. He was wearing a loose sweater, concealing his frame. "I have no core control," Lysander lied. The lie was smooth, practiced. "The chair did the work. Now leave me. I need to contact the furniture restorers." He spun the chair around and rolled away. Elara watched him go. She looked at the crushed wood on the desk. She knew load-bearing limits. She knew fulcrums and leverage. A motor didn't do that. A man did. That evening, dinner was an exercise in tension. They sat at opposite ends of a 20-foot table. The only sound was the clinking of silverware on porcelain. Elara wasn't eating. She was watching. She watched the way he held his fork. She watched the muscles in his forearms flex as he cut his steak. "Is the food not to your liking?" Lysander asked, not looking up. "The food is fine," Elara said. She took a sip of water. "I used to row crew in college. Did you know that?" Lysander paused. "No. It destroys your hands," she continued, her eyes locked on his fingers. "The friction of the oars. You get these specific calluses right at the base of the fingers and across the palm. It comes from gripping something heavy and pulling your own weight against resistance." She pointed with her fork. "You have them." Lysander set his knife down. He looked at his own hand, then at her. "From the joystick," he said dismissively. "I navigate this chair 12 hours a day." "A joystick requires a light touch," Elara countered. "Those calluses are from torque. From gripping a bar. Like a pull-up bar. Or a bench press." The air in the room grew heavy. The silent servants standing in the corners seemed to tense up. Lysander smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. It was a cold, dangerous expression. "You have a vivid imagination, Elara. Perhaps isolation is making you paranoid. I can arrange for a therapist if you wish." "I don't need a therapist," Elara said, standing up. "I need the truth. You aren't who you say you are." "I am exactly who I say I am," Lysander said, his voice dropping to a low growl. "I am a cripple in a golden cage, just like you are a fraud in a designer dress. We are both pretending, aren't we? Eat your dinner." He didn't wait for a response. He signaled the butler, who immediately wheeled him out of the room. Elara stood alone, her heart pounding. He was gaslighting her. She knew what she saw. Her husband wasn't weak. He was terrifyingly strong. 2 nights later, the noise returned. It was 2 a.m. The house was asleep. Elara was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying the library incident in her mind. Thud. Hiss. Thud. It was faint, vibrating up through the floorboards. It was coming from below the west wing. Elara sat up. Lysander had told her the West Wing was off limits. He had told her the noise was heavy-duty climate control. Climate control doesn't have a rhythm. Climate control doesn't sound like iron plates slamming together. She threw the covers off. She was done being a prisoner in the dark. She needed to know who she was sleeping under the same roof with. She slipped out of her room, barefoot. The hallway was dark, lit only by the faint blue glow of the security cameras. She stuck to the shadows, moving toward the service elevator that the cleaning staff used. She pressed the button for the basement level, sublevel 2. The doors opened into a concrete corridor. It was freezing cold. The noise was louder here. It sounded like a gym, a serious, industrial gym. She crept down the hallway toward a heavy steel door that was slightly ajar. A sliver of light spilled out onto the concrete floor. She held her breath, inching closer. She peered through the crack. The room inside was massive. It was indeed a gym, but not a normal one. It looked like a military training facility. There were sparring mats, weapon racks, and heavy bags hanging from chains. And there was Lysander, but he wasn't in his chair. He was hanging from a high bar, doing weighted pull-ups. A 45-pound plate was chained to his waist. His back muscles rippled under the strain, sweat glistening on his skin. His legs, the legs that were supposed to be useless dead weight, were held perfectly straight, his core tight and engaged. He pulled himself up, chin over the bar, then lowered himself with slow, agonizing control. Alara clapped a hand over her mouth to stifle a gasp. He wasn't just healthy. He was an elite athlete. A fighter. She watched, mesmerized and terrified. He dropped from the bar, landing lightly on the balls of his feet. He walked over to a bench and grabbed a towel. He moved with the predatory grace of a tiger. "I know you're there," he said. He didn't turn around. He didn't shout. He just spoke to the empty room. Alara froze. "I can hear your heart rate," he continued, wiping his face with the towel. "You have a distinct arrhythmia when you're scared. Step into the light, Alara." Alara's legs felt like lead. She pushed the door open and stepped inside. Lysander turned to face her. He was shirtless, imposing, and very much standing. He didn't look ashamed. He looked lethal. "You can walk," she whispered. "I can run too," he said, taking a step toward her. "I can fight. I can kill." "Why?" Tears pricked her eyes, not of sadness, but of confusion. "Why the chair? Why the lie? You let the world think you're broken." "Because the broken are invisible," Lysander said. He stopped 3 feet from her. He towered over her. The vulnerability she had associated with him was gone, replaced by raw, overwhelming masculinity. 5 years ago, someone tried to murder me. They thought they succeeded. By the time I recovered, I realized that as long as my enemies thought I was a cripple, they would underestimate me. They would get sloppy, and I could watch them. "And me?" Alara asked, her voice trembling. "Am I an enemy? Is that why you lied to me?" Lysander's expression softened, just a fraction. He reached out, his hand hovering near her face, but he didn't touch her. "No," he said softly. "You are the only thing in this world that isn't an enemy. But to keep you safe, the lie has to be absolute. Even to you." "That's not protection," Alara said, backing away. "That's manipulation. It's survival." Lysander snapped. "Do you think your aunt and cousin are the only ones who want to hurt you? You are my wife now. That puts a target on your back the size of this building. If the world knows I can fight, they will bring an army. If they think I am weak, they will send a single assassin. I can handle an assassin. I can't handle an army while trying to protect you." Alara shook her head. "I didn't sign up for this. I signed up for a business deal, not a spy movie." "You signed up for safety," Lysander said. "And I am providing it. But now," he sighed, running a hand through his damp hair. "Now you know. And that makes you a liability." "A liability?" Alara bristled. "I'm your wife. You are a loose end," Lysander said grimly. "If you breathe a word of this to anyone, your lawyer, your friend, the mailman, we are both dead by sunset. Do you understand?" Alara looked into his eyes. She saw the fear there. Not for himself, but for her. It was a strange, twisted kind of care, but it was there. "I won't tell," she said. "Good," Lysander said. He walked back to his wheelchair, which sat in the corner like a discarded shell. He sat down, his posture instantly collapsing back into the shape of the broken CEO. It was a terrifying transformation. He looked up at her, once again the man in the chair. "Go back to bed, Alara, and lock your door. Not because of me, but because if I'm wrong and someone else is watching, you need to be ready." Think about what you just saw. He's been faking a disability for 5 years to hunt down the people who tried to kill him. And now Alara is the only other person on Earth who knows. Do you think she's safer now that she knows the truth? Or is she in more danger than ever? Let me know in the comments. And if you're enjoying the twists, hit that like button. It helps the algorithm find more people who love a good mystery. The house was quiet again, but the silence felt different now. Heavier. Lysander looked at the photo in his hand. Alara thought she had stumbled into a trap. She thought she was a pawn in a corporate game. She had no idea that she was the queen. She asked why. Why the contract? Why her? To answer that, you have to go back. Not to the boardroom where the contract was signed, but to a rainy Tuesday night 5 years ago. Before the accident. Before the wheelchair. Before Lysander Kane became a ghost. 5 years ago, Lysander was 26 and already drowning. He had just taken over Kane Global after his father's sudden death. The wolves were circling, competitors, board members, fake friends. He hadn't slept in 3 days. He had walked out of a gala, unable to breathe the stifling air of hypocrisy, and ended up here. In a small, empty park. He just wanted 5 minutes of peace. He didn't get it. 3 men, loud and smelling of cheap whiskey, stumbled down the path. They saw the expensive suit. They saw the expensive watch. "Hey, Richie Rich," one of them sneered, kicking Lysander's shoe. "You got a toll to pay for sitting on our bench." Lysander didn't look up. He was too tired to fight. "Leave me alone." "I don't think we will," the man said, pulling a switchblade. The blade caught the streetlight. Lysander tensed. He knew how to fight. He had been trained in Krav Maga since he was a teenager. But he was exhausted, and there were 3 of them. Then a voice cut through the rain. "Hey, gentlemen." A girl stepped out from the shelter of the bus stop. She was wearing a faded university hoodie and carrying a heavy backpack. It was Alara. She was 21, a scholarship student working 2 jobs. "Walk away," Alara said, her voice steady, though her hands were shaking. "The police station is 2 blocks over. I just texted my brother who works the night shift there. He's on his way with his partner." The man with the knife laughed. "You think we're scared of a little girl?" "I think you're scared of a felony assault charge," Alara shot back, stepping between the men and Lysander. She didn't know who Lysander was. To her, he was just a stranger in trouble. "And I think you're definitely scared of the K-9 unit. Do you hear that siren?" In the distance, a faint siren wailed. It was just an ambulance passing by, but the drunks didn't know that. They looked at each other, cursed, and scrambled away into the dark. Alara let out a breath she had been holding. She turned to Lysander. She didn't ask for money. She didn't ask for a favor. "You okay?" she asked, offering him a hand. "You look like you've had a hell of a week." Lysander looked at her hand. It was rough, stained with ink from her architecture drafting classes. "Why did you do that?" he asked. "They had a knife." "Because you were alone," she said simply. "Nobody should be alone when the wolves come out." She checked his face for bruises, gave him a warm, crooked smile, and then ran off to catch her bus. She didn't know his name. She didn't know she had just saved the most powerful man in the city. But Lysander knew. He sat there in the rain, watching her bus drive away, and for the first time in his life, he felt seen. Not as a CEO, not as a target, but as a human being. That was the moment. The following week, the accident happened. A car bomb meant to decapitate the Kane Global leadership. Lysander survived, but the world thought he was crippled. He used the lie to go underground. But while he was hunting his enemies, he was also watching her. He watched from the shadows as Alara struggled. He saw the potential in her that her family ignored. He became her shadow guardian. He protected her from poverty, from danger, from her own family's toxicity. He wanted to approach her 1,000 times. He wanted to walk up to her and say, "I am the man from the park." But he couldn't. Cashin Alston, the man who ordered the car bomb, was still out there. If Lysander showed any interest in Alara, Cashin would see it. He would use her to get to Lysander. So he stayed away. He loved her from the dark. Then came the framing, the embezzlement scandal. Lysander watched the security feed from the Vance boardroom. He saw Serafina and Miles destroy Alara's reputation. He saw them kick her out onto the street. His rage was volcanic. He wanted to send a strike team to burn the Vance offices to the ground. But that would expose him. He realized he had run out of time. He couldn't protect her from the shadows anymore. She was homeless, vulnerable, and desperate. He had to bring her inside. Inside the fortress. The marriage contract was the only way. It gave him legal standing to shield her. It gave her the money she needed to survive. And most importantly, it brought her into Kane Manor, the safest place on earth. He played the cold, distant husband because he had to. If he showed her affection, she might get too close. If she got too close, she might find out he wasn't crippled. And if she found out, she became a target. It was a torture of his own making. Living in the same house with the woman he loved, but forcing himself to treat her like a stranger. But he couldn't help himself completely. He allowed himself small, invisible acts of love. Lysander stood up from the bench. He put the photo back in his bag. She knew now. She knew he could walk. The dynamic had shifted. The danger was no longer abstract. He walked over to a secure phone on the wall. He dialed a number. Petra, he said when his lawyer answered. Increase the perimeter security. Level 5 lockdown. Is there a threat, sir? Alara knows, Lysander said quietly. And if she knows, I can't guarantee she won't slip up. If Cashin is watching, he'll see the change in her behavior. He'll know the marriage is real. What do you want to do? If they come for her, Lysander said, his voice turning into ice. We kill them all. No more shadows. Prepare the team. He hung up. He wouldn't lose her. Not after 5 years of watching. Not after she saved him in the rain. He would burn the world down before he let them touch her. You look nervous, Mrs. Vance, Cashin said, swirling the ice in his glass. Please drink. It helps with the guilt. Serafina Vance didn't touch her drink. She looked older than she had a month ago. The audit she had faked to frame Alara had backfired. While Alara was gone, the company's stock had plummeted without her designs to prop it up. They were bleeding money. We aren't here for drinks, Mr. Alston, Serafina said, her voice tight. We are here because you promised a cash injection for Vance Architecture. We held up our end. We fired the girl. We ruined her reputation. You did, Cashin nodded slowly. And then she disappeared. Poof. Gone into the fortress of Kane Manor. Married to my old friend Lysander. That wasn't our doing, Miles blurted out. He looked sweaty and disheveled. How were we supposed to know the cripple wanted a wife? Cashin slammed his glass down. The sound echoed like a gunshot. Miles jumped. Do not call him a cripple, Cashin hissed. That chair is a prop. A theater piece. I know it. I just can't prove it. He leaned forward, the predator scenting blood. Lysander is plotting something. He's been hiding in that house for 5 years, building his algorithms, watching me. If he married your niece, it means she is important to him. And if she is important to him, she is useful to me. What do you want? Serafina asked. I want you to bring her to me, Cashin said. I need leverage. I need to make Lysander come out of his hole. If I have the girl, he will have to negotiate. She won't come to us, Miles said. She hates us. We framed her. Then lie, Cashin shrugged. Tell her you're sorry. Tell her you found the real evidence. Tell her whatever you need to tell her to get her out of that house and into my custody. Do that, and I will wire $5 million to your offshore account tonight. Serafina and Miles exchanged a look. $5 million. It was enough to save the company. It was enough to save their lifestyle. Done, Serafina said. The phone vibrated. Caller ID Serafina Vance. Alara stared at the screen. Her thumb hovered over the decline button. She hadn't spoken to them since the day she was escorted out by security. But curiosity is a dangerous thing. She answered. What do you want? Alara asked, her voice cold. Alara, Serafina's voice sounded broken. Tearful. Thank God you answered. I don't know how to say this. Try goodbye, Alara said. Wait, please. Serafina cried out. It's Miles. He confessed. Alara froze. What? The guilt ate him alive, Serafina lied. The performance was Oscar-worthy. He got drunk last night and told the board everything. He told them about the shell company. He told them he stole your credentials. Alara, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I thought you had actually done it. Alara gripped the phone tighter. You expect me to believe you didn't know? I was blind, Serafina sobbed. I was trying to protect the family name. But I have the drive, Alara. I have Miles's laptop with the original transfer logs. I want to give it to you. I want you to take it to the police. Clear your name. Please. Let me fix this. Alara's heart hammered against her ribs. This was it. The golden ticket. If she had that drive, she wasn't a criminal anymore. She wasn't the broke girl hiding behind a billionaire husband. She could be Alara Vance, architect, again. She wouldn't be a liability to Lysander. She would be his equal. Where are you? Alara asked. I'm at the old textile factory on 4th Street, Serafina said. I'm meeting the foreclosure agents there in an hour. Please come. I'll hand you the drive, and I'll never bother you again. I'll be there, Ilara said. She hung up. She stopped at the door of the West Wing. She should tell him. She should tell Lysander she was going. But he would stop her. He would say it was too dangerous. He would send his security team, and Serafina might get spooked and run. I have to do this myself, Ilara thought. I have to prove I can fight my own battles. She walked past the security station. The guard, a man named Torres, looked up. Mrs. Kane? Going out. Just to the pharmacy, Ilara lied smoothly. I have a migraine. I need a specific brand they don't stock here. I'll be back in 40 minutes. Torres hesitated. His orders were to track her, but not to imprison her. Do you want a driver, ma'am? No, I need the drive. It clears my head. Torres nodded slowly. Be safe, ma'am. The gates opened. Ilara drove out. She felt a rush of adrenaline. She was taking her life back. She didn't notice the black sedan that pulled out of a side road 2 miles down the coast, following her at a distance. And she certainly didn't know that Torres immediately picked up his radio. Code yellow. The subject is mobile. She declined the escort. Tracking initiated. Ilara parked the Audi behind a rusted dumpster. The place looked deserted. The silence was heavy, broken only by the wind whistling through the shattered windows. She stepped out, clutching her purse. Serafina, she called out. In here, Ilara. The voice came from inside the main warehouse floor. Ilara walked in. The space was massive, filled with the skeletons of old loom machines. Dust motes danced in the shafts of light cutting through the roof. Serafina was standing in the center of the room. She was holding a silver flash drive. You came, Serafina said. She wasn't crying anymore. Her face was dry. Her expression was unreadable. Give me the drive, Ilara said, holding out her hand. And then stay away from me forever. I really am sorry, Ilara, Serafina said. But she didn't move. I'm sorry that you were always too smart for your own good. What are you talking about? She's talking about the fact that you just walked into the lion's den, little girl. A deep voice echoed from the shadows. Ilara spun around. Miles stepped out from behind a pillar. But he wasn't alone. 2 men in tactical gear were with him. And behind them, walking slowly, confidently, was a man Ilara had never seen before. Cashin Alston. Who are you? Ilara asked, backing away. She reached into her purse for her phone. Cashin tooted, wagging a finger. Don't try it. We have a jammer active. Your GPS is dead. Your signal is dead. Ilara looked at Serafina. You set me up? Again. We needed the money, Serafina said, her voice devoid of emotion. It's business, Ilara. You understand business. This isn't business. Ilara screamed. This is kidnapping. Grab her, Cashin ordered. Ilara didn't wait. She threw her heavy purse at the nearest guard's face and sprinted toward the side exit. Get her! Miles yelled. Ilara was fast. She vaulted over a rusted conveyor belt, her sneakers squeaking on the concrete. She could see the door. Sunlight. Freedom. She reached for the handle. A hand clamped onto her hair. She screamed as she was yanked backward. One of the mercenaries slammed her against the brick wall. The impact knocked the wind out of her. Feisty, the mercenary grunted. He pinned her arms behind her back and zip-tied her wrists. Cashin walked over. He looked at her with a mix of amusement and pity. You have spirit. I see why Lysander likes you. Lysander will kill you, Ilara spat, struggling against the restraints. Cashin laughed. That's the plan, my dear. That is exactly the plan. He turned to his men. Load her into the van. And send the picture to Kane. Let's see if the cripple can run. Sir, the signal is gone. Petra stood by the desk, her face pale. Her car is parked at the textile factory on 4th, but her phone is offline. GPS trackers in the car are jammed. Lysander sat in his chair. He wasn't moving. He wasn't breathing. He looked at the screen. A new message had just arrived on his secure server. It was a photo. Ilara, tied to a chair in a dark room. A gun pressed to her temple. The caption read, "Come alone. No police. No backup. Or she dies." Lysander stared at the image. He saw the terror in her eyes. A low, guttural sound escaped his throat. It wasn't human. It was the sound of an animal that had just lost its mate. They have her, he whispered. We have a strike team ready, Petra said urgently. Alpha team is 5 minutes out. No, Lysander said. He stood up. He didn't use the armrests. He didn't use the motor. He stood up to his full height, 6'3" of pure, concentrated rage. He walked over to the wall. He placed his hand on a hidden panel. The wall slid open, revealing a weapon rack. He grabbed a tactical vest. He grabbed a SIG Sauer P226. He grabbed a combat knife. "Sir," Petra said, her voice trembling, "if you go out there, if you walk, the world will know. The board will know. Your cover is blown forever." Lysander racked the slide of the pistol. The sound echoed through the room like a gavel strike. "I don't care about the board," he said. His voice was calm now, terrifyingly calm. "I don't care about the company. I don't care about the lie." He turned to Petra. His eyes were burning. "They took my wife." He walked toward the door, moving with the lethal grace of the soldier he had hidden for 5 years. "Burn the wheelchair," he said over his shoulder. "I won't be needing it anymore. The lie is over. The cripple is gone. Now only the husband remains. Do you think Lysander can get to her in time? Or did Alara make a fatal mistake trusting her family? We are heading into the finale. If you are ready for the takedown, type "No mercy" in the comments." "He isn't coming," Cashin sneered, turning to Alara. "It seems my old friend has calculated the odds and decided you aren't worth the risk." "Smart man. Cold but smart." Alara didn't answer. She was watching the shadows near the ceiling. She thought she saw movement. A shift in the darkness. "Kill her," Cashin ordered the nearest mercenary. "Make it clean. Send the body to the manor." The mercenary nodded and raised his pistol. Alara squeezed her eyes shut. She thought of the gym. She thought of Lysander hanging from the bar, strong and alive. "He isn't broken," she told herself. "He isn't broken." The skylight above them shattered inward. Glass rained down like diamonds. Before a single shard hit the floor, a dark shape dropped from the rafters, landing in a crouch directly between the mercenary and Alara. It wasn't a wheelchair. It was a man. Lysander rose to his full height. He moved so fast it was hard to track. He grabbed the mercenary's gun hand, twisted it with a sickening crack, and drove his elbow into the man's temple. The guard dropped like a stone. The room froze. Serafina screamed. Miles scrambled backward, tripping over his own feet. Cashin Alston stood paralyzed, his mouth open. He stared at Lysander's legs. Strong. Planted. Lethal. "You," Cashin stammered. "You can walk." Lysander adjusted his cuffs. His face was a mask of cold fury. "I can do a lot more than walk, Cashin." "Kill him," Cashin shrieked, backing away. "Shoot him." 3 more guards rushed forward. This wasn't a fight, it was an execution. Lysander didn't just fight, he dismantled them. He moved with the efficiency of a man who had spent 5 years training for this exact moment. He ducked a swinging rifle but swept the attacker's legs and delivered a knockout blow to the jaw before the man hit the ground. The second guard tried to tackle him. Lysander sidestepped, using the man's own momentum to send him crashing into a pillar. Alara watched breathless. The cripple she had married was gone. In his place was a warrior, a force of nature. He was terrifying, and he was magnificent. Miles tried to run for the exit. Lysander didn't even look at him. He simply picked up a rusted metal pipe from the floor and hurled it. It slammed into the doorframe inches from Miles's head with a deafening clang. "Stay," Lysander commanded without turning around. Miles collapsed to the floor, sobbing. Now only Cashin remained. The older man fumbled for his own weapon, his hands shaking. "I'll destroy you," Cashin yelled. "I have the files. I know about the bribes." "Aye." Lysander crossed the distance in 2 strides. He kicked the gun out of Cashin's hand and grabbed him by the throat, lifting him off the ground. He slammed him against the brick wall. "You touched my wife," Lysander whispered. The sound was low, dangerous, and vibrating with rage. "You made her bleed." "Lysander, wait," Alara shouted. Lysander froze. His hand was still tight around Cashin's throat. Cashin's face was turning purple. "Don't kill him," Alara said, her voice shaking but firm. "If you kill him, you're just a murderer. You're better than that. You're better than them." Lysander looked at Alara. He saw the zip ties cutting into her wrists. He saw the bruise forming on her cheek. Slowly, the red haze in his eyes cleared. He tightened his grip one last time, leaning in close to Cashin's ear. "You're going to prison, Cashin. For the kidnapping. For the car bomb. For everything. And if you ever say my wife's name again, prison walls won't save you." He dropped Cashin to the floor. The man gasped for air, defeated. Lysander turned to Serafina and Miles. They were huddled in the corner, looking at him like he was a monster. "Leave the country," Lysander said. "If I see either of you in this city by sunrise, I will destroy what little is left of your miserable lives." He didn't wait for an answer. He walked over to Alara. He pulled a knife from his belt. Alara flinched instinctively. Lysander's eyes softened, the first emotion he had shown since entering the room. "I've got you," he said softly. He cut the zip ties. Alara rubbed her wrists. She looked up at him. He was towering over her, breathing hard, sweat on his brow. He was real. "You walked," she whispered. "I had to," he said. The chair was too slow. He didn't ask if she was okay. He didn't ask if she could walk. He simply scooped her up into his arms, carrying her as if she weighed nothing. "Let's go home," he said. Alara sat on the plush sofa, holding a mug of tea. Her hands were still trembling slightly. Lysander was standing by the window, looking out at the dark ocean. He had showered and changed, but the tension was still in his shoulders. "You have questions," he said. He didn't turn around. "A few," Alara said. "You can start with why." Lysander sighed. He turned to face her. "The chair was a shield, Alara. After the car bomb took out my father and nearly killed me, I knew I couldn't fight Cashin in the open. I needed him to think I was weak. As long as I was the crippled CEO, he got sloppy. He stopped looking for the threat. And me?" Alara asked. "Where do I fit into your strategy?" "You weren't strategy," Lysander said quietly. "You were the anomaly." He walked over to a drawer and pulled out a small, worn box. He handed it to her. Alara opened it. Inside was a cheap plastic lighter, blue, with a university logo on it. She frowned. "I don't understand." 5 years ago, Lysander said. "Regent's Park. 2 a.m. It was raining." Alara's eyes widened. The memory hit her like a lightning bolt. The exhausted man on the bench. The 3 drunks. The way she had bluffed them with a story about her brother in the police force. "That was you," she whispered. "The man in the suit. You looked so sad." "I was ready to give up that night," Lysander admitted. He sat down on the coffee table in front of her, finally on her level. "I was going to walk away from the company, from the legacy. I didn't see the point. And then a girl with a heavy backpack and no reason to help a stranger stepped in front of a knife for me." He looked at her hands. "You dropped your lighter when you ran for the bus. I kept it. You've known me for 5 years," Alara said, processing the sheer scale of the deception. "All those times, the scholarship? The shipment that didn't get caught." "Me," Lysander nodded. "I watched you. I protected you from a distance because getting close meant putting a target on your back. But when your family framed you, when they threw you out, I couldn't watch anymore. I had to bring you inside the walls." "So the marriage," Alara said, her voice thick with emotion. "It wasn't a transaction. It was for you," Lysander said. "It was the only way to give you the money and the legal protection without exposing myself. I tried to be cold. I tried to make you hate me. Because if you loved me, you might find out the truth. And if you found out the truth, Cashin would take me," Alara finished. "I failed," Lysander said bitterly. "I tried to keep you safe, and I led you straight to him." He stood up and walked to the desk. He picked up a document. "This is the annulment papers," he said, "and a transfer order for $40 million. He placed them on the table in front of her. "Cashin is in custody. Your family is gone. The threat is over. You don't need my protection anymore, Alara. You are rich, you are free, and you can leave." Alara looked at the papers. Then she looked at the man. She saw the loneliness in his eyes, the years of isolation, the sheer weight of the burden he had carried to keep her safe. He was offering her the door, even though it would break him to watch her walk through it. She stood up. She picked up the papers, and she ripped them in half. Lysander stared at her. "Alara, you're an idiot, Lysander Kane," she said, a small smile touching her lips. "You think I want the money? You think I want to leave? I lied to you," he said. "I trapped you. You saved me," she corrected. She stepped closer to him. "You saved me in the park when you didn't even know me. You saved me from my family. You saved me tonight. You've been saving me every day for 5 years." She reached out and placed her hand on his chest. She could feel his heart beating, fast, frantic. "I don't want a transaction," she whispered. "I don't want a contract. I want the man who kept a cheap plastic lighter for 5 years because it reminded him of the only good thing in his life." Lysander looked at her as if she were a miracle. "Alara, are you sure? There is no going back. If you stay with me. All of me. No more masks." "Good," she said. "I never liked the wheelchair anyway." He didn't hesitate this time. He wrapped his arms around her, pulling her flush against him, strong, solid, and very much alive. He kissed her. It wasn't the cold brush of lips from the wedding. It was hungry, desperate, and filled with 5 years of suppressed longing. It was a vow sealed not in ink, but in fire. The next morning, the headlines changed. Vance family flees in disgrace. Cash and Alston arrested for corporate espionage. And one more. Kane CEO makes miraculous recovery. Alara and Lysander walked, hand in hand, out of the front gates of the manor to face the press. They stop at the microphones. "Mr. Kane," a reporter yells. "Is it true? Are you fully healed?" Lysander looks at Alara. He smiles, a real, genuine smile that transforms his face. "I am," he says into the camera. "I finally found the strength to stand." He squeezes Alara's hand. She squeezes back. They turn and walk toward their car. The future is uncertain. There will be other enemies. There will be other battles. But they won't fight them alone. And that is the power of a vow. It isn't about the contract you sign. It is about the person you choose to bleed for. What a journey. From a homeless scapegoat to the queen of Kane Global. If you loved that ending, and if you're glad Lysander finally stood up for his wife, smash that like button. And tell me in the comments, would you have forgiven him for the lie? Or would you have taken the 40 million and run? Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next story.